Jose Ramon Albert is a professional statistician and senior research fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Dr. Albert obtained his Bachelor of Science in Applied Math from De La Salle University, Master of Science in Statistics, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Statistics from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. So let's give a hand to Dr. Albert. So our second presenter is sorry, sorry, Sir Toots. Wait, Reniel. Sorry, hindi ko nakuha yung email. Yung pangalawa. Yung sa second presenter. Hindi na send. Our second presenter will be presenting on Project Protectin on adolescent pregnancy. Our presenter will be Director Marilyn Moral and Ms. Darlene R. Dancel from DSWD Social Technology Bureau. So let's give them a hand. And now I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Albert for his presentation.
Thank you, Francis. Sinimulan kaninang umaga na tatagalugin, no? So I'll try my best. Merong script akong na sa tulong ng AI, pero I will come and go. I mean, it serves, ang AI is useful. I mean, it really is so helpful, but it doesn't fully capture everything. So that's why I will go out of script from time to time, no? So magandang hapon po sa kanilang lahat. Ngayon, pag-uusapan natin medyo drama, no? Hindi gaanong napapansin siguro natin na sa pagbabago ng ating lipunan ang tinatawag na malaking pagbagsak ng fertility rate. Kasi nung una, no, nung kino-conceptualize namin itong araw na to, tinanong sa akin, meron bang study sa PIDS tungkol sa teenage pregnancy? Sabi ko, parang peripherally, sinabi namin yun sa isang GEDC, Gender Equality, Disability, Social Inclusion na discussion paper, I think we released last year, no? And then sabi ko, pahapyaw lang. So baka, pero alam ko merong bagong datos, no? Mula sa 2025 National Demographic and Health Survey, ang PSA, na pinag-uusapan yung fertility in general. Because syempre, hindi ba, pag sinabi mong fertility rate, no, kasama na doon yung pregnancies. So, very dramatic. Sinabi na, below replacement rate na daw tayo ngayon sa Pilipinas according to the 2025 NDHS. So, gumawa po kami ng isang maikling tinatawag na policy note, no? Hindi ko alam kung na-release na sa PIDS o i-release pa lang, hindi ko ako sigurado. Pero kung gusto nyong makita yung detalye, no, ng sasabihin ko ngayon, although yon walang mga joke katulad ng sinasabi ko ngayon, no, ngayong hapon. Yun yung parati ko sinasabi. Pag nakikinig kayo, ang difference is pag mahilig ako magpatawa, no? Kasi nakakatawa naman talaga minsan ang sitwasyon, no? Lalo yung pag tinignan natin ng sarili natin sa salamin, parati akong tumatawa. Ang tatlong bahagi ng ating pag-uusap ay tungkol sa mga numero at ang mga dahilan kung bakit ito nangyayari at ang kahulugan nito para sa ating kaunlaran. Next slide please. So, headline numbers. Average ng Pilipinang babae ngayon, 1.7 na lang ang anak niya sa buong buhay niya. Mababa ito sa tinatawag ng replacement level na 2, no? Pangalawang beses na itong bumaba sa replacement level na sa magkasunod na survey. Dati kinikilala tayong Catholic demographic outlier sa Southeast Asia. Noong 1993, 4.1 ang fertility rate. Ang tanda ko, ng lola ko, ang anak 13, no? So ano nangyari, no? Bakit bigla na lang ang laki ng binabagsak, no, ng mga numerong ito? Ngayon hindi na tayo high fertility country, no? Sumusunod na tayo sa mga trends. Ang Japan, nasa bandang 1 point something din, no? Ang Korea even lower, 0.7 yata, no? Pero anyways, next slide. Ang dapat nating pansinin ay ang bilis ng pagbaba. Halos 25 years, no? Mula 1993 hanggang 2017, bumaba na siya 4.1 to 2.7. Pero 8 taon lang yun. Tapos mula 2.7, naging 1.7. Ang bilis ng pagkabagsak. Kahit sa i-compare natin sa mga ibang bansa across the region. No? Hindi ito unti-unting pagbabago, pero may biglaang nangyari matapos ang 2017. So ang tangang, bakit kaya? Ano nangyari? No? So babalikan natin kung ano yun. No? Bakit talagang ang laki ng binagsak ng fertility rate? Next slide please. So konting salita tungkol sa datos. Galing ito nga sa yung pinaka-recent, yung 13th NDHS. Yung NDHS, ginawa na yan ng PSA, then the NSO, way back since 1968. Unang midterm round, usually kasi every 5 to 6 years. First time to na between the 12th and the 13th, 3 years lang, no? Yung pagitan ng survey. So mahigit 36,000 households at halos 30,000 na kababaihan ang na-interview, 98-99% response rate, at sinukat ang fertility gamit sa kompletong pregnancy history. Ito ang tinatawag na gold standard for demographic measurement. Next slide please. Kumalat ang pagbaba sa lahat ng lugar, pero sa urban areas, bumaba ito mula 3.5 noong 1993 papuntang 1.5 ngayon. Sa rural areas naman, 4.8 papuntang 2.0. Halos katumbas na ng replacement level sa rural. Nagbabago rin yung edad sa panganganak. Ngayon, pinakamataas sa edad ay 25 to 29 na kada 94 kada 1,000 na kababaihan. Tapos bumagsak pa matapos ang edad na 35. Parang fertility pattern ng ating mga kapitbahay sa East Asia. Sinabi ko na Japan and South Korea. Bakit hindi kaya dahil mahilig na tayong manood ng mga Korean novela, no? May mga hypothesis tayo, no? Pero anyways, next slide. Pero itinatago yung national averages nito pag tinignan natin kasi sa Calabarzon, NCR, Negros, even lower, no? 1.4, parang Japan na ang antas natin. Sa kabilang banda, pagdating sa BARM, 2.4, Zamboanga, 2.3, Caraga, 2.2, halos tapos na, ibig sabihin, ang transition sa pinakamayaman at pinaka-urban na region, pero patuloy pa rin na sa yung mga ano natin sa mga pinakamahirap na region. Next slide please. Mas malinaw ang divide kung tignan natin tungkol sa kita. Sa pinakamahirap na quintile, pag binahagi natin into 5 groups, no, yung tinatawag na quintile. Sa pinakamahirap na quintile, 2.8 ang average na anak. Sa pinakamayaman naman, 1.1 lang. Ang kababaihan may primary schooling na 3.1 yung kanyang fertility rate. Sa madaling salita, sa mas marami ang panganganak sa mga pamilyang mas kaunti ang kakayahang mag-invest sa kanilang mga anak. Yun yung reality, no? Balikan po natin ito dahil sentro ito ng tinatawag na development story, no? Next slide please. Ang pinaka-dramatic na reversal sa datos makikita nung 2021 pa lang, national priority ang teenage pregnancy, no? Sa ilalim ng EO 141, tinawag pa itong National Social Emergency, no? Pero ang teenage childbearing ay nag-peak siya, no? Na 10.1% noong 2013 at bumaba sa 4.8%. Ito ang pinakamababa sa kasaysayan ng survey na ito. Adolescent fertility rate ay bumaba sa 22 kada 1,000 na batang babae. So hindi ganun karami ang nanganganak na mga teenager. Siguro nagsisex pa rin sila pero hindi nanganganak, no? So ang tanong, ano kaya nangyayari, no? So next slide. Ang natitirang problema ay lubos na concentrated. Halos 7 beses mas mataas ang teenage pregnancy sa pinakamahirap na quintile kumpara sa pinakamayaman. Umaabot sa 17% sa mga batang babae na primary schooling lang ang inabot. At lampas 8% naman sa Zamboanga Peninsula. At sa mga kasal na adolescent girls, kasi may mga adolescent girls na kinakasal, no? Bakit kaya, no? Anyways, 38.5% ang unmet need para sa family planning, ang pinakamataas sa lahat ng age group. Ang natitirang problema ay nasa pinakamahirap at pinakamababa ang edukasyon. Next slide. Kaya ganito ang larawan. Ang tanong natin, bakit? At bakit bigla itong bumilis ng pagbagsak matapos ang 2017? Ano nangyari? Daanan natin ang matematika tapos tignan natin ang mga tatlong pangunahing na dahilan. Una, ang unang instinct natin, sasabihin natin, family planning. Pero hindi ito suportado ng datos. Tumaas lamang ng 4 na percentage points ang contraceptive use mula 2017 hanggang 2025. So hindi dahil sa condom, hindi dahil sa mga ano. So ano nangyari? Halos flat na ang unmet need mula sa 12.5%. Sa ang unti-unting pagbabago na nito ay maaaring mapaliwanag ng unti-unting pagbaba, hindi bigla ang pagbagsak. Ang mabilis na kumilos ay ang kasal mismo. Next slide. Tignan natin ang union formation. Halos 43% ng mga babae ay nasa reproductive age ay hindi pa nag-aasawa. Hindi katulad dati. Ano nangyayari? Bakit ayaw na mag-asawa ng mga babae? 57% ng mga may asawa ay ayaw nang magkaanak. Naantala o hindi kaya nangyayari ang kasal? Tinatawag itong second demographic transition ng mga demographer. Bumagsak ang fertility, hindi dahil sa contraceptive access, kundi dahil sa nagbabagong ideya at mga desisyon ng mga babae tungkol sa autonomy, partnership at pagiging magulang. Next slide please. Unang dahilan, nauna na ang kababaihan sa lalaki sa eskwela at sa trabaho. Nanguna ang mga batang babae sa PISA reading na halos 35 puntos at mas maraming babae ang nakakapagtapos ng kolehiyo sa loob ng mahigit isang dekada. Karamihan nasa BPO, no? Mga babae, halos 57% ng mahigit 2 milyong OFW natin ay babae. Para sa edukadong Pilipina na may kita, mas malaki na ang opportunity cost kung ikaw ay ikakasal. So, pwede nang, hindi ko kailangan ng mga lalaki. Yun ang iniisip siguro mga babae. So, tama yan. So, hindi na kailangan ng kasal para sa economic security. Pag nakita mo, di ba, mga Miss Universe. No, kaya nga tuwang-tuwa pag nananalo sa Pilipinas, no? Pati mga lahat sa social media talagang pag nanalo sa kung sino si Pia naman, di ko ma-pronounce yung pangalan niya. Next slide. Pangalawang dahilan, ang isang institutional paradox. Tayo ang isang bansa isa lang sa bansang sa buong mundo maliban sa Vatican na walang divorce. Isang batas na dapat sanang protektahan ang kasal. Sa halip ay pinipigilan pa ang pagpasok nito kasi patuloy pa rin tumataas ang separation pero informal at doon nga walang bayad ang lalaki habang ang panghabang buhay ang epekto at sakit sa ulos ng mga babae. So ang rasyonal na tugon ng maraming babae, wag na lang mag-asawa. Na yun. Okay? Pangalawang dahilan ang nagpapahiliwanag sa timing. Social media. Yun yung sinasabi ko. 8 sa 10 Pilipino ay nasa social media. Mas marami ang babae kaysa lalaki sa Facebook, sa Instagram, no? Kaya pag magpapakita mga tawag dito, mga influencers sa social media, bibilin kagad ang mga babae mga kung anong cosmetics, no? Mabilis, no? So pinakamataas din ang oras natin sa TikTok sa buong mundo. Sa mga platforms, mga digital platforms na ito, mas marami ang babaeng gumagamit ng social media at lumang label na NBSB. Alam mo yung NBSB? No boyfriend since birth. Ayan. Yan ay nagbago na dati. Ayaw mong aminin. Pero ngayon, badge na ito na ngayong sadyang pagiging single with choice, no? Parang ganyan. Karamihan sa mga single sinasabing, I am single by choice. Pati sa lalaki, nangyayari rin yan, no? Hindi ginagawa ng social media ang economics, pero binibigyan lang nito ang ng wika, komunidad at role model. Pangatlo. Hindi pala pangatlo. Sige, next. Ang parehong puwersa ay bumabago rin sa uri ng pamilyang pinagbumula ng mga bata. Meron na tayong halos 15 milyong solo parent. 95% nito ay mga ina. At 2 lang sa 3 batang Pilipino ang pinalaki na magkasamang magulang. 1 sa 3 ay lumaki ng walang isang magulang, kadalasan ang ama dahil sa informal separation, pag-abandona o pagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa. Direktang nakalink ito sa teenage pregnancy at mas mababang well-being ng kabataan. So naiisip ng mga bata ngayon, Ay, di pala dapat talagang okay. So, on one hand, that's a good thing, no? Pero next, bakit importante ang formal structure? Tignan natin ang pinakabatang mga babae, 78% ng mga batang edad, 2 hanggang 5 ay developmentally on track, pero tinatago nito ang 10 puntos na agwat sa lalaki at babae, 14 na puntos sa mahirap at mayaman, at 47% lang sa BARM. Mas mataas ng 10 puntos ang mga batang dumalo sa early childhood education, nagbubukas ang mga agwat kahit hindi pa nagsisimula ang eskwela. Next slide. Nung ako'y pumunta po at nag-attend ng tinatawag na 2025 Growth Academy sa University of Chicago last year ba yun? O yata. Si James Heckman, Nobel Prize winner, galing niya magsalita. Sinasabi ni Marma nga sa akin, uy, sabihin mo kay Jim, magkaklase kami. O, natatandaan nga nila. O, magaling pala si Marma talaga, no? Dahil kasi imagine mo, kaklase niya si Jim Heckman. So anyways, inihambing ni Jim Heckman ang US at Denmark. Sabi niya, sa Denmark, na pinaka-generous na welfare state, nagpapantay ng kita pero hindi nagpapantay ng skills or social mobility. Dahil ang pamilya, hindi ang transfer system, hindi yung pagbibigay ng sapat na income ang pangunahing gumagawa ng skills. Ang babala para sa Pilipinas, baka mas kuonting bata na lang ang isisilang pero sa mas mahinang family environment na lalong magpapalala sa human capital challenge na nafe-face natin ngayon. Next slide. Ano ang kahulugan nga nito para sa ating kaunlaran? 3 implikasyon mula sa nasasabihin natin sa ating policy agenda. Next slide. Una, mas maagang dumadating ang demographic dividend, pero mas maaga rin pong siyang aalis. Ang pagbaba ng youth dependency ay nagpapalala ng resources ng bahay at gobyerno, katulad ng nangyari sa East Asia. Pero ang window na inaasahan nating bukas hanggang 2050s na hindi masyado tayong tatanda ay actually nag-iiba na rin. Kasi wala na yung mga bata. So unti-unting nawawala yung mga bata. So yun yung magiging problema. Mas mabilis tayong tatanda. Hindi naman to magiging automatic. Kailangan itong maisip natin na ngayon pa lang pinag-iisipan na natin kung anong gagawin natin. No? Kaya nga ako medyo kaninang umaga talagang malakas yung sinasabi ko na lahat tayo, aminado na kailangan tayo mag-invest, even sa elderly. Pero ang ginagawa kasi natin, iba yung framing natin eh. Kasi kailangan natin yung pera, saan natin kukuha yung pera? Kaya nga sinasabi ko talagang i-reform yung military pension, makakatipid tayo doon. Kasi yung buwis, hindi natin matatouch yan eh. No? So, kailangan makamtan natin sa pamamagitan ng trabaho, ipon at human capital ang ating security sa hinaharap. Next slide. Pangalawa, ang panganib na tumatanda nga tayo bago pa man yumaman. Tuwan-tuwa na ang DepEd, si RC Balisacan, we are now higher, upper middle income. Sige. Pero umabot ang Japan sa 1.7 fertility rate bilang mayaman na bansa na. Umabot tayo dito, halos nasa threshold lang tayo ng upper middle income, hindi pa nga tayo mayaman. No? Kailangan buuin na natin ang ating mga pensyon, health insurance, care system para sa isang tumatandang lipunan. Hindi pa tayo talagang tumatanda, pero papunta tayo doon. Habang unti-unting nawawala ang informal safety net ng malalaking pamilya sa mismong panahon na kailangan nito, which is now. Next slide. Pangatlo at makaasa. Dahil mas maliit ang ating bilang ng bata, may pagkakataon tayo sa quality side na trade-off. Ang universal at dekalidad na early childhood services na dating tinuturing nating hindi kayang gastusan, pati ngayon, di ba, sa DepEd, ang daming classroom. Last year yata, konting-konti, less than 100 schools ang na-build ng DPWH para sa DepEd, no? Ang baba ng pero papalubag loob kahit na medyo humihina yung natin ng infrastructure sa education sa mga hindi natin kailangan in the future. Not as big a need. Pero wala pa tayo doon. Sa ngayon, kulang pa, no? Pero sinasabi ko nga sa mga taga-DepEd, yung mga future planning natin kailangan makalibrate natin, no? Kasi hindi na natin kailangan. So nakikita na natin na yung quality transition sa institutional deliveries, child survival, pero hindi pa saan man. Mas mababa pa rin sa isang kapat ang full immunization sa BARM laban sa mahigit 90% sa Ilocos. Kaya narito ang sinasabi kong next slide. Ang agenda natin, 4 na hakbang. Una, i-reframe natin ang mandato, dapat maging family well-being at human capital policy ang population policy. Pangalawa, mag-invest ng maaga at kung saan naroon ang mga bata, first 1,000 days especially, ECCD, pre-kindergarten, at nakatarget sa BARM at sa mga ibang mga mahirap na lugar at pinakamahihirap na mga pamilya. Pangatlo, suportahan ang lahat ng uri ng pamilya, pondohan ang Expanded Solo Parents Welfare Act, palawakin ang childcare at pag-usapan ang dissolution of marriage bill based sa ebidensya, hindi sa emosyon at hindi dahil sa reliyon. Dahil ilang percent ba tayong Catholic? Walang, dalawa lang tayo except including Vatican na hindi nagbibigay ng divorce bill, no? Anyways, pang-apat, by the way, I'm Catholic, no? I was a former religious monk, by the way. Pang-apat, protektahan ang mga adolescent sa pamamagitan ng pagsasara sa 38.5% unmet needs sa kasal at na teenage girls. And in conclusion, next slide, 50 taon nating ginugol para pababain ang fertility at wala pang isang dekada baga ito bumagsak ng husto. Walang bansang nag-reverse ng ganitong transition gamit ang incentives. Si Singapore, binibigyan ng negative income tax para lang magkaanak. Does not work. So hindi natin dapat asahan yon because it's not working. Ang makatotohanang agenda ng pamahalaan, itong mabuti, gawing compatible ang kasal at pagiging magulang sa aspirasyon ng edukadong Pilipina at mag-invest ng malalim at maaga sa mga batang isinisilang. Ang redistribution ng pagkakapantay-pantay ng kita, ang pamilya lang na suportado ng maaga at mabuti ang makapagpapantay ng kakayahan. Maraming salamat po. Available po ang policy note sa aming website. Salamat.
Thank you, Sir Toots, for your insightful presentation. So now I'd also like to call on our second presenter, who is Miss Maria Agatha Angeles, Social Welfare Officer of the Social Technology Bureau of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. She will represent Director Marilyn Moral. So she will be presenting on Project Protect Teen. So I'd like to call on Miss Angeles po. Okay lang.
Taas pala nito. Hello? Ayan. Hello po, good afternoon everyone. So, yours truly, Maria Agata D. Angeles, Social Welfare Officer 4 from the Social Technology Bureau of DSWD. So, on behalf of Director Marlene Moral, I will be presenting Protect Teen program. So, before I proceed with what is Protect Teen, let me first introduce what is Social Technology Bureau. So, basically, this is the program development arm of DSWD. So, our bureau is the one mandated to develop programs and services of the SWD. So, next slide, please. All right, so, next slide again po. All right, so we have this process that we follow. Basically, it has 5 phases: analysis, design, test, evaluate, and institutionalize or promote. So when we develop programs and services, we analyze the current situations of our target beneficiaries and of the issues that are on hand. And after such, we conduct data gathering, and we then design the program. So once we design the program, we test it. So we call pilot testing. And once that we are done with the pilot testing, we evaluate the program. So a separate team, different from the designing team. So they will be evaluating the program to check its relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. So kapag nakita na yung program na dinevelop ay pasok dun sa apat na criteria na yon, then it will proceed to phase 5, institutionalize and promotion. However, kapag may nakita na parang may mga pwede pang ma-improve dun sa design ng program, it will then proceed to redesigning. So it's an iteration process that we follow. And as you can see, these designing ng mga programs po ay triggered by policy instruments, mga law, mga plans, at minsan also ng mga emerging needs natin. And we ensure that our programs are holistic, rights-based, evidence-based, and participatory towards to improve human behavior and social functioning and empowered families and communities. So currently, Protect Teen is in its phase 3 sa development process, which is pilot testing. Next slide po. Ayan. So, ano ba yung mga trigger points na para ma-develop namin yung Protectin or ba't dinevelop to, no? So, yung mga policy instruments na meron tayo, the EO 141 as mentioned kanina, no? The Philippine Development Plan, the Social Protection Plan, the Philippine Population and Development Plan of Action, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. Ayan. Meron din mga issues and gaps na nakita. No, so una, health and developmental risk, as you can see na may high medical risk, no, bata na mabubuntis, syempre hindi pa fully matured ang katawan nila, reproductive health barriers, based din to sa experience sa ground na kahit sabihin natin na available yung mga contraceptives, hindi binibigyan ng mga minors. So may mga barriers pa rin tayo doon. Alarming trend din na even though 2024 PSA data shows na bumaba yung registered live births among adolescent mothers, among adolescent age, makikita naman na yung mga nabuntis ng age 10 to 14 ay tumaas naman. And then, also the developmental and mental strain sa ating mga batang ina. No, yung stress, yung depression, also the stigma na meron kapag nabuntis ang isang batang babae. Another set ng mga gaps ay the socioeconomic and safety barriers. So, educational disruption, pag nabuntis ang batang babae, tumitigil sa pag-aaral. Madalas, hindi sila bumabalik dahil instead na mag-aral, aalagaan pa yung anak. Sunod ay economic hardship. So, usually nagiging cycle of poverty ang pag nabuntis ang isang batang babae. Sunod ay vulnerability to abuse din, no? Mas malaki ang tendency na ma-abuse ulit ang mga batang babae. Kasi una pa lang, nung napuntis sila, nung bata sila, form of abuse na yon. At malaki ang tendency ng repeated pregnancy among them. And, syempre, the social stigma. Ayan. So, ang next dito ay programmatic gaps in the previous Protectin design. So, later, yung design kasi ngayon ni Protectin that I will be presenting is actually on its third iteration. So sa mga previous na design, limited yung session guides na binibigay sa mga bata at may mga curriculum gaps pa. Next slide po. So ito yung PSA data na na-mention kanina, no? 2023 versus 2024, actually bumaba ng 2024. Pero tumaas nga yung ages ng 10 to 14. At yung top 3 actually from 2023 is still the top 3 noong 2024. See, next slide po. So yung mga triggers as to why we develop Protectin and we continue to enhance the design of Protectin. So now, Protectin is a social contract na between the government and the adolescent mothers. So hindi na siya basta ayuda lang, nabibigay lang natin ng pera yung mga ating batang ina, pero ito ay may kasunduan. Now, ang goal natin ay to break cycle of vulnerabilities among them and to contribute meaningfully to their communities. So specifically, ang objective natin ay una, reduce repeated pregnancies. Gusto natin maiwasan na yung pagbubuntis nila ulit. Sunod ay gusto natin nabigyan sila ng appropriate educational and livelihood pathways. At syempre, to ensure optimal maternal and infant health outcomes among them. So, tatlo yon, no? Repeated pregnancies, education and livelihood or development, and optimal maternal and infant health. Sige po, next po. Ayan. So, as mentioned din kanina, 2019, in-announce na may national social emergency on adolescent pregnancy, on teenage pregnancy. So, since 2021, DSWD has been developing Protect-Teen. No? We started to conceptualize the Protect-Teen, and meron ding fund na binigay si DBM under 2021 GAA. The issuance of EO 141, 2022, we already have the design of Protect-Teen and may funds ulit. However, 2023, wala nang funding from DBM. So, paano? Charot. Ayun. And then, but then we still continued with pilot implementation of the design. With initially 164 beneficiaries among 2 pilot areas, no, Antipolo and Malay-Balay, Bukidnon. And then at the end of the year, we conducted the project evaluation. At as a result of that evaluation, nagkaroon ng first enhancement ng Protect-Teen. This first enhancement was pilot implemented sa Samar Province naman. And based ulit doon sa implementation sa Samar at sa previous na unang design ni Protect-Teen, nagkaroon na ng second enhancement. So itong design na ito yung ipapresent ko later. Yeah, so ngayon, actually, nag-start na yung pilot implementation ito noong October 2025 and we continue to implement it until now. Sa start ng year din ngayon, nagkaroon kami ng midterm implementation review to check if okay ba yung pag-i-implement ng design, talaga bang nakakatulong siya sa mga adolescent mothers or wala naman pinatutunguhan, ganon. So, chika ko po mamaya. And then we continue with phase 1 pa rin, the implementation. And we also move to phase 2 where we have additional pilot areas. So the key features of this ay strengthened education and healthcare interventions, monthly healing and transformation session as a form of SBCC for our adolescent mothers, and the provision of grants, no, based on the conditionalities that we have. So this program now ay 24-month cycle ang tatakbuhin, and the adolescent mothers will be enrolled sa loob ng 24 months. We also have expanded Protect-Teen session guides in partnership with Spring, and we also have systems and tools now. So our pilot areas are the following. No? So 5 sila ngayon. We used the PSA data ng 2023 when we were designing. 2023 PSA data pa yung meron. So, yan. Approximately now we have 800 plus target beneficiaries for 2026, and we aim to have it nationwide implemented sana by 2027, should the budget allow. Yeah, so ngayon, dahil ito ay isang social contract, we also have criterias. No? Sino-sino pa yung mga pwedeng pumasok ng Protect-Teen? Sorry po, I keep on proceeding lang. Pero pa next slide po. Sige pa po. Alright, yan po. So, sino-sino mga pwedeng pumasok? They should be adolescent mothers aged 9 to 19. Kahit na mag-20 sila, as long as enrolled sila sa program ng 19 years old sila, they could continue. Dapat may isang living child kasi dapat may inaalagaan na silang bata because the vulnerability ay mas mataas, the burden din sa kanila ay mas mataas kapag may inaalagaan na silang bata. Dapat din hindi member yung household nila ng 4Ps because we don't want duplication ng mabibigyan natin ng ating grants. No? We want to maximize yung mga mabibigyan natin sana. At dahil meron din tayong RA 11596 o the Anti-Child Marriage Law, no? Yung mga minor, we do not enroll yung mga minor na may cohabitation. Apparently, sa mga pilot areas natin, marami ang hindi nakakapasok kasi mataas ang cohabitation, lalo na sa mga urban areas. So, yun. Next ay dapat sila ay vulnerable and disadvantaged based sa vulnerability assessment tool that we have developed. And then dapat they would comply with the conditionalities at allowed or may consent ang kanilang parents at guardian. So for the components, next slide. All right, so a brief overview of the components. We have 5 components for Protect-Teen. One is the transformative support services. So dito basically pumapasok yung mga conditionalities na meron tayo sa ating programang Protect-Teen. So nandito ang kanilang monthly healing and transformation sessions. No? Ito yung kino-consider ni Protect-Teen as a SPCC strategy niya para ma-change din yung mindset ng ating mga adolescent mothers. Good to share with you guys na may mga adolescent mothers kami na excited na mag-attend lagi ng HATS. What we call it HATS, the Healing and Transformation Sessions. And meron din kami, sadly, may mga na-delist kami or natanggal. Pero they expressed that they wanted to still join the sessions kahit na wala sila makakuhang economic empowerment grant. No, kahit walang pera, willing sila mag-attend ng sessions. I think that's one good result ng ating efforts. Pasok din dito sa transformative support services ang kanilang quarterly health check-ups and mandatory postnatal requirements sa ating mga adolescent mothers at kanilang mga anak. Pasok din dito sa component na ito yung educational facilitation natin sa ating mga adolescent mothers. So gusto natin bumalik sila sa pag-aaral. Kung sila man ay OSY, pwedeng ito ay informal school, formal school, ALS, or kahit TESDA. No? So we accept those different forms ng schooling. And then next po ay the Economic Empowerment Grant. So, the Economic Empowerment Grant ay binibigay sa mga adolescent mother who would comply with the conditionalities. So, monthly, minomonitor natin ang compliance nila. Sila ba ay sumusunod sa mga conditionalities natin? At may mga MOVs ba yung pagsunod nila sa mga conditionalities natin? No? So, may mga documentary requirements tayo to prove that. At kung makita man na sila ay compliant, no, so they would be receiving a 3,000 monthly economic empowerment grant that our adolescent mothers use usually for baby needs, for their food. Nagtitipid din sila para may pamasahe sila sa mga sessions na kinakandak. And then, ayun, I think I want to highlight din doon yung quarterly pregnancy testing ng ating mga adolescent mothers. So, ang goal natin ay ma-reduce yung repeated pregnancy. So, quarterly minomonitor natin via pregnancy test kung sila ba ay nabuntis na ba ulit or hindi. Tapos we also monitor kung anong type na family planning method ang meron sila. Sige po, next slide. So, the next 3 components po na ito, this will be implemented this 2026. No, so, last year, yung first 3 months namin, it focused on the provision and transformative support services and the economic empowerment grant. So, these 3 services ngayon, focus on 1, the support system nila sa family nila. Naniniwala kasi tayo sa systems approach kung saan hindi lang si adolescent mother ang ating target. No, gusto natin mabigyan din ng intervention ang kanilang families. Next is the protecting advocacy and development. So dito papasok yung mga advocacy as we implemented ng first 3 months ni Protectin na bagong design. We've really experienced pa rin yung mga bashing online. No, marami pa rin comment online na so yung gobyerno sinusuportahan pa rin na mabuntis yung mga batang babae. Kaya, so, dito, dahil doon din, no, component natin na labanan yung mga ganun pa rin pagtingin at yung mga pagtingin pa rin sa mga batang ina natin. No, kung based pa rin sa actual experience namin, marami pa rin talagang judgers sa ating mga batang ina. And lastly, the multisectoral support pathway. So ito ay isang critical component sa amin kasi we follow the whole of government approach dito sa Protectin. So, iba't ibang ahensya ang katuwang natin sa pag-implement ni Protectin. So, locally, we have partnered with the education sector, with health, with TESDA, para sa mabigyan natin ng support yung Protectin at ma-ensure pa rin natin na makapag-comply pa rin sila sa mga conditionalities nila. So, next ay what have we achieved so far? Sige, next slide na po. Alright, so currently we have 450 adolescent mothers. During the phase 1 pilot implementation, we aim to expand in another 2 areas with a total of 800 plus beneficiaries na. Currently, we have conducted 7 regular cycles kung saan meron kaming monthly HATs, may monthly compliance verification, and distribution ng economic empowerment grant. We also have established local program implementation team through strong coordination with pilot LGUs, and we also conducted the midterm implementation review. So based doon, yung HAT sessions natin showed positive support. Yung grants natin support for baby health and needs, basic needs and education of adolescent mothers, promotion of ASRH and family planning methods, and yung mga unenrolled adolescent mothers natin, di ba conditionality natin yun, we facilitated yung pagbabalik nila sa paaralan. So yung iba na hindi man makabalik sa formal school, we endorse them to DESTA. So what are the challenges? So yung barriers no na conflict pa rin sa pag-aalaga ng anak tapos a-attend ng session, yung conflict na may work yung iba tapos a-attend ng session, at saka transportation kasi meron pa rin tayo mga beneficiaries na nasa GIDA. Malayo mula sa lugar kung saan tayo nagkakandak or saan yung poblasyon. Limitation on budget affects the implementation. Dahil nabawasan ang budget for protecting, we had to also decrease our targeting for 2026. And still the stigma against protecting program and our beneficiaries. So moving forward, we will commence pa rin with phase 2 pilot implementation. And we also have to strengthen the coordination with partner education and health agencies and the advocacy component for protecting. So, ayan lang po. For my last slide, our tagline, empower her today for their shared tomorrow. So, thank you po. You may visit our Facebook page, the SWD Social Technology Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Angeles, for your presentation. So now I'd like to call on Sir Albert and Ma'am Angeles po for the open forum. We have some time to take a couple of questions from the audience.
Ay, dapat nandun sa...
So the floor is now open for questions. If you have a question for our presenters, please feel free to raise your hand so we can accommodate you. Yes, ma'am.
Yung tanong ko tungkol sa teenage, protect teenage, yung sa teenager na pregnancy. Saan specific na munisipyo kayo nag-pilot? Kasi in Eastern Samar, 10 years old, nagpre-pregnant. At saka paano sa informal sector, we're from informal sector, how we can help them to coordinate or facilitate them to this WD. Yun lang. Thank you.
Thank you po, Ma'am Judith. Sige po. So, yung as mentioned ko po kanina, yung Protect Teen na ini-implement sa Samar Province. So, yung provincial government po ng Samar, yung kapartner ni DSWD. So, kung magre-report po tayo ng beneficiary para doon, we can coordinate with provincial po ng Samar, provincial government ng Samar. Kasi sila din po yung katuwang ng FO namin, field office namin doon. At currently po kasi closing din yung implementation sa Samar. Ang current na pilot areas namin sa new design ay Region 3, Region 6, Region 10, at saka NCR and 4A. Yan. Pero hindi naman namin kino-close yung door doon and we acknowledge po na may 10 years old. Kaya actually yung targeting namin, binaba namin ng 9 to 19 years old. Kasi may yung recent data na or recent news na meron tayo, nabuntis siya ng 8, nanganak siya ng 9 years old. So, Ayun po, kung may i-report po tayo, DSWD pa rin po sa field office po.
Kasi you mentioned your pilot project was in Samar. It is in Catbalogan, the 18 municipalities. The center was Catbalogan. As I've said, it is in Eastern Samar. So is it okay that I coordinate the municipal MSWDO so that the MSWD officer will go to the teenager mother so that the MSWDO is the one who make an analysis, and at the same time she is the one who authorized to the province, if it is the province, because as you've told me, the pilot implementation was to the provincial. So the center of Eastern Samar was in Borongan, Eastern Samar City, but the province also located at that city. When I go back, I have to coordinate to the MSWD and the parent of the teenagers so that both of them will have a consultation. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I see somebody raising their hand at the back. I think ma'am who is close to the aisle raised her hand first.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I find it difficult to stand, no? But I'm Ollie Lucas from Unang Hakbang Foundation. I have a question for both. Firstly, with Dr. Albert, no? You're talking, I think one of your prescriptions is that we should invest in children. But I'm thinking, but when you talk of investing in children, that has been ECCD, no? And the first 1,000 days. But from the totality of your study, it seems to me that it might be better to frame it as investing in families, in women, no? And actually in adults, in adult learning and education, and finally also in agriculture, nutrition for agriculture, because we've had a lot of discussions on the first 1,000 days. And one of your problems is actually the availability of food in the areas where they are needed and at the price that is affordable. So that actually speaks to food security issues. Otherwise, if you're talking about investing in children, ECCD, the only thing that we're doing there is, it seems to me that all we're going to be doing there is providing meal programs, diba? No, yung meal investment in meal program ng DepEd, ibababa mo doon sa DSWD na meal program for those in ECCD centers. So ibababa mo pa yon. So it's all meal program na all of that is manufactured food. Parang hindi tama, di ba? We're just making the wealthy even more wealthy because they're the manufacturers of food, no? Pero yung food items in the original state ay hindi natin pinayayaman. Yung farmers natin hindi natin pinayayaman dahil walang investment doon sa food security. And then also, the other question I have here is your studies, no? Remember doon in the data of the statistics office, no? Because they're talking about women, only about 50% of women are in the workforce. No? So if you think of that, that's actually only like 25% of your total population in the workforce. Pagkatapos, and then most of them are in elementary jobs. Their jobs only improve when they are actually in their 30s or 40s. So that suggests to me that there should be better support for women so that they're not in elementary jobs. Of course, that goes against your premise, no? That the more educated women are, the less they are disposed to have children. But I think it's we're talking here about an issue of the development of women and the rights of women. Thank you.
Yeah, let me respond. These are not mutually exclusive. Come on, if you're thinking of woman, you're thinking of children, you're thinking of the family. It's not mutually exclusive. So there's nothing wrong with what I said. The point here, in fact, that's what Heckman said. Family is the whole core issue. But when it comes to asking support from donors, UNICEF provides support for children. Certain groups provide support for families. It should be holistic. You cannot disaggregate. You cannot disentangle. All of these are all together. So I don't think we're quarreling on anything. The point is we need to set our priorities straight. That's the point that I'm just trying to say. Because the thing is, government doesn't know what it's doing. We tend to put our money, our resources in all sorts of places where actually it will not matter. And that's why I was focusing on what Jim Heckman was pointing out, that even if we keep increasing incomes, capacities are different. That's why the families matter. Ultimately, the families matter. When you're thinking of families, you think of women, you think of children. But most of the time, it's always easier to sell things about children. Why? Because they're our future. Isn't it?
You know, but that seems to me like, we're going to plan on the basis of what's.
As I was saying, I think we're arguing on the wrong things. We actually have similar ideas, but we're not talking correctly to the people who will make decisions. That's the point that I'm trying to say. We need to make our act together, focus, unity, and make sure that we talk with the right persons who are going to help us. Thank you.
We have a question from a gentleman near the aisle.
I guess one thing I learned in social science is that nothing is linear and there will always be compounding variables when we're talking about certain things. Anyway, I am Bernard from Asian Institute of Management and UP Population Institute. Well, your topic today actually touches close to my heart because of the demographic variables. And of course, as mentioned by Dr. Albert, we are actually in the demographic transition from a young population and now we're transitioning to an aging society. And I think it's already well established. My question now is relating to the plenary session earlier. For Dr. Albert, do you think it is also important for the Philippines or the Philippine government to prioritize the silver economy, considering na bumababa yung fertility rate and almost always at the same time, if we compare it with Japan, South Korea, kapag bumababa ang TFR, umahaba rin yung buhay ng mga tao. But it doesn't mean na pag umahaba ang buhay, healthy living. Kasi in the Philippines, our case is there's morbidity contraction. So, morbidity expansion. So, pagdating nila ng 6 years old, some of them are not capable enough. Hindi ko sure kung tama yung term. Kung they're not capable enough to participate in the economy. But in Japan, there's morbidity compression na kung saan kapag nagkasakit sila sa bandang dulo ng buhay nila, at least nakapag-contribute sila ng at least 40 years ng buhay nila sa ekonomiya. So my question po sa inyo, ulitin ko lang po, do you think it is high time for the Philippines to prioritize the silver economy? For Ms. Agatha, you mentioned one of the criteria for the protecting is dapat yung mother is not cohabitating, not married. But actually, there is a cultural and policy mismatch here because in the Philippines, especially in the rural areas, let's say kapag nabuntis yung babae, it's a culture na dapat yung lalaki ay mag-move in sa babae or dapat sila ay bumukod, right? And nangyayari yun even in teenagers. In fact, in the 2021 NDHS or maybe the 2017, merong 17 years old na babae na parang she was encouraged na mag-move in with her boyfriend, di ba? So paano yung mga ganong mga instances? And maybe if masecure natin yung funding for the next iteration, let's say lumaki, baka mas dumami yung ma-reach natin na mga same cases. Yun lang naman po.
Thank you for your question. First, I'll give the mic to Dr. Albert for the silver economy question.
Whether it's silver economy or anything else, the whole point is we have to start reframing. Our ways of doing things are not working. Things are changing dramatically. So all the more reason for us to, again, this morning, that was what I was saying, paradigm shifts. We keep doing the same things over and over. We say we want change, di ba? No, sabi pa, oh, pag change is coming, oh, hindi naman nangyari, di ba? And nagpapabudol kasi tayo eh. And you know, the thing is we need to work together, unify, put our work together, and then make sure that the decision makers listen to us. Because most of the time, politics always wins at the end of the day. Every time, you know, Iglesia ni Cristo rally, it's always about politics, my goodness, just to protect one of their cabaros. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but I cannot say it in any other way, but we need to recognize if people need to go to jail, they should go to jail, especially the big fishes. If we need to work on the silver economy or whatever it is, we need to get our act together because right now, we're just spending on, quote, infra, the big ticket items, infra. Tapos nakakalusot naman, no? Flood control, imbis na napupunta sa social protection. Military pension, that's why I've been saying this over and over, that's a big chunk of money no government has actually addressed, and it's a growing problem. It's ballooning. But if we even just cut half or even a quarter or even just 10% of that and then put it somewhere else. But we're not doing it. Why? Everybody's afraid. Ay, baka magalit yung generals. Ay, that's why things never get done because we are always afraid for real change, not the change that's being scammed to us.
And Miss Agatha, I think you'd like to answer the second question.
Thank you for the question. No, actually, when we were designing the new Protect Teen, pinag-discuss lang din talaga namin. We also presented kay Secretary Rex yung concern namin sa hindi pag-include sa mga nagko-cohabitate or informal or in union or marriage na mga bata. Pero dahil ito ay isang batas at hindi, parang we don't want to tolerate naman din yung ganon. I think ang maganda rin ngayon with the Social Technology Bureau kasi we are in pilot testing. So basically, para kaming research, no? So may hypothesis kami. Ang hypothesis namin is protecting na ito yung mga criteria. So once we test it, titignan namin sa evaluation kung okay ba talaga na hindi kasama yung ating mga bata na in union or dapat talaga isama natin sila. So currently ngayon dahil nasa testing kami, hindi muna namin sila sinama. But also the good news is we're also developing a model of intervention to address CEFMU. No? We call it CEFMU, the Child Early and Forced Marriage and Union. So we are currently developing this basically dahil para magkapatid sila ng adolescent pregnancy. Same sila ng mga socio-economic drivers, mga reasons kung bakit may ganon. So yung interventions namin, medyo super similar, no? Yung mga psychosocial healing interventions natin, yung mga referral natin, pagbalik sa education, yung mga health nila, halos magkaparehas. Ang pinagkaiba lang ay ang sa design naman nung new program for CEFMU, no, yung Kalinga, we call it Kalinga, ay iba yung economic empowerment grant doon. No, dahil yun ay may partner, may tumutulong na magsustento doon sa pagpapalaki ng bata, mas maliit yung grant na ibibigay sana doon sa mga yun. So yun din ay for pilot testing. So we'll also see yung result nun. And eventually, actually, the department is we'll see sana kung pwede pang ipag-merge yung dalawang programs na yun. Kasi same naman yung issues eh. So ayun po for now from the SWD.
Thank you, Sir Toots and Miss Agatha, for your comments and for your responses. So I think we've had a very insightful discussion up until this point, and I'm really grateful that so far, like, there's been a lot of audience participation and a lot of questions to enrich the discussion. No? But now I'd like to move to the reaction part of our segment. So I'd like to call on Mr. Marvin Mosquida, Senior GAD Specialist at the Philippine Commission on Women, to give his reaction.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon sa ating lahat. So, I have taken notes pa, so let me read na lang po this one. So, first of all, so we would like to thank the Spring Program and PIDS for inviting the PCW to be part of today's discussion. So, as I was listening to both the presentations kanina, one thing really stood out to me. Although they focused on different topics, they actually complement each other very well. And the presentation on the Vanishing Filipino Baby gave us a broader picture of what's happening in the country. So we learned that the Philippines has now reached yung below replacement fertility, and that adolescent childbearing has declined significantly over the past decade. So those are important milestones, and they reflect the collective efforts of main sectors. But one message that really resonated with me is that while the national numbers have improved, the issue hasn't disappeared. Instead, adolescent pregnancy has become more concentrated among girls from poorer households, those with lower educational attainment, and those living in underserved communities. So for the second presentation on Protect Teen, showed us how we can better support yung adolescent mothers and their families through a comprehensive package of psychosocial services, economic support, family strengthening, peer networks, and multi-sectoral coordination. So it's encouraging to see a program that recognizes that adolescent mothers need more than financial assistance. They also need the support that enables them to continue building their lives. So for us at PCW, or Philippine Commission on Women, so that's an important reminder. It tells us that adolescent pregnancy is not only a health concern, but also a social welfare concern. So it is also a gender equality issues. So when a young girl becomes pregnant, so again, the impact extends from far beyond yun sa childbirth. So it often affects whether she can continue her education, participate in the labor force, or to become economically independent, so or fully exercise her rights and make choices about her future. So these are issues that lie at the heart of PCW's mandate to promote yung gender equality and women's empowerment. So that's why I appreciate yung approach nung sa Protect Teen. So beyond responding to the immediate needs of adolescent mothers, it also invests kumbaga in strengthening yung families and communities. So recognizing that meaningful requires more than one intervention. So again, one perspective that I'd also like to contribute through the lens of the care economy. So again, which is one of the key advocates of the Philippine Commissions on Women. So when we talk about adolescent pregnancy, so we often focus on health outcomes, di ba, or educational attainment. But we sometimes somehow overlook yung kanilang other reality, na maraming adolescent mother ay nag-assume ng caregiving responsibilities at a stage na they themselves are still growing and developing. So in many cases po, they become the primary caregivers for their children while trying to continue yung kanilang education, earn a livelihood, or navigate yung early adulthood. So these caregiving responsibilities are essential, yet they often, kumbaga, remain underpaid, unrecognized, or unequally shared. So this is why sa PCW po, we continue to advocate for strengthening yung care economy, not only by recognizing the value of care work, but also by reducing yung burden of unpaid care. So redistributing yung care responsibilities more equitably among families. So in this context po naman, sa Protect team, pagdating doon becomes even more meaningful pagdating sa ating sa care economy because it recognizes yung adolescent mothers cannot succeed through individual resilience alone. They need supportive families at accessible services and also peer networks and responsive institutions. So in many ways po, these are the building blocks of a stronger care system. So perhaps from a gender mainstreaming perspective, today's discussion po also reminds us that adolescent pregnancy cannot be addressed by one sector alone. So again po, as we discuss the implication of declining fertility, I think we should also ask another question. What kind of society are we creating for women? So are we creating one where women delay or avoid motherhood because they have genuine choices and opportunities? Or because becoming a mother still carries yung kumbaga disproportionate economic and professional and caregiving costs? So yun po yung mga tanong na dapat natin din pagdating dito sa implications. Yung empowerment of the women, or are we really empowered women, or yung may iba pa po ba na issues regards. So for PCW po, dito po nag-uumpisa yung gender equality and the care economy na nag-intersect po talaga. So women's empowerment should never require women to choose between pursuing a career and having a family. Rather, our goal should be to create conditions where women and men can share yung caregiving responsibilities, access quality care services, and exercise yung kanilang reproductive rights while participating fully in economic and public health. So again, as we move forward to a future where fertility rates are changing and our demographic landscape continues to evolve, our focus should not simply be on the number of children being born. It should be on ensuring that every child is cared for, every family is supported, and every girl has the opportunity to live with dignity, exercise her rights, and reach his or her full potential. So medyo mahaba po siya. Pero I'll end my reaction. So ultimately, today's presentation also reminds us that investing in adolescent is also an investment in gender equality in PCW. So supporting adolescent mothers, preventing unintended adolescent pregnancies, and strengthening care systems are all part of creating a society where every girl has the opportunity to complete her education, pursue her aspirations, and participate fully in economic and social life. So as the government's primary policy-making body and coordinating on gender equality and the women empowerment, PCW remains committed to working with DSWD and SPRI and all our partners in advancing gender responsibility policies and programs that leave no woman or girl behind. So that's it po from the PCW. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mosqueda, for your reaction. So I think, do our speakers have any last thoughts or last words to share? All good. Well, I'd like to thank everyone in this audience for their participation. And if there's one thing that I think we should all take away, it's that fertility is not just a biomedical issue, but it's a very complex social and economic phenomenon that requires us to think about solutions in more complex ways rather than just like advocating for giving contraceptives and leaving it at that. Maybe instead we should start thinking about how to invest in families, how to invest in human capital, because this is a social issue, but it's also a gender issue. It's a very multi-sectoral issue that requires us to work together to convince our policymakers to move forward in a way that's best for our country. So with that, I'd like to close the session